powerful people lie? Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba has been accused of lying twice this week alone. Once for saying he didn't give the Oppenheimers permission for their private terminal at OR Tambo International Airport. And again, after an explicit video of him surfaced at the weekend. So what drives the powerful in particular, or I don't know, is it everybody, to lie? Do they really have so much that they can risk it all, and even in public? Tonight, joining us is Solly Moeng, senior consultant from Donvally Reputation Managers, and clinical psychologist Khosi Jiyane. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you. Hello.
Khosi, why do powerful people lie?
I think I want to take a step back and say it isn't just powerful people, because they are part of a bigger society, and there is nothing special about them and the relationship to lying that is not also common to everybody else. So lying is a form of, it's a defense mechanism. So something has happened, and it's a form of containing that situation. So it's a form of defending the self and an attempt to preserve the reputation from whatever might accrue as a consequence of something that has happened, and an attempt to therefore then try to contain by distorting reality, distorting the facts, so that you are trying to swing the understanding of the public to have a certain understanding of what actually happened, as opposed to what they will have by then have.
And is it always to hide the truth, or is it possibly because you're embarrassed, or are there a multitude of factors here?
Well, in this case, it is to hide the truth because of the consequences, being shame, embarrassment, and I mean, in this case, it's literally really being put out physically and at all levels. And so it is what of myself, the self that has been put out there, and especially if you are a known person and have that kind of an identity and such a public identity, it is what of the self can I still salvage? And so lying is a way in which, you know, that is the attempt in principle.
How often do you see this sort of thing? Is that where you come in, guns blazing?
I think people lie because there are no consequences for lying. They lie because it's become the culture, you know. They lie because they get rewarded for lying. They lie because there's sufficient audiences out there that will take whatever they say to them. So as long as there are no consequences, people will do what they do, especially politicians, in a country where people, there are too many people.
You can do what you want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that lying helps anyone preserve their or protect their reputation. The things with reputation management is that every lie that you tell is going to creep out of the crevice one day. It always does.
Well, they say that, don't they? I mean, it always catches up with you eventually.
That's right.
How do you keep, and also the more lies you tell, the harder it is to remember.
Yeah, you forget what your own lies in the end. And usually people, you know, do these things in groups. You know, they have other people defending them. But a lot of times, it takes the one person you trusted to one day come out and say, you know what, the story that we told you 2 years, 4, 5 years ago was not true. This is what actually happened.
And when that sort of information comes out, can you ever believe them again?
Well, you know, there's a whole big public, and there's a whole spectrum of possibilities. And I think lying is an attempt, and at least from a psychological point of view, is an attempt to manage that public and the perceptions that public has of you as a person and the position that you occupy. Because obviously politicians are wanting to have people, you know, believe in them, and therefore to be willing to give them the vote, the support, and so on, to be able, for whatever means or for whatever ends that they're trying to pursue. And so whether it works...
And is that the first thing that comes to most people's minds if you are in a difficult situation? I'm just going to lie.
Yeah.
Is that what happens?
Because I think, I don't imagine, if we go straight into the Malusi, at least the sex tapes, I don't imagine that he anticipates that that's what's going to happen. And so it hits him in the face unexpectedly, and there's a knee-jerk reaction that says, try and cover this up. You know, it's not the most... It comes from the reptilian brain, which is really about, how do I survive this mess? How do I try and pull all these pieces together? It's not necessarily the best, but that's the knee-jerk reaction. And very often they have the people who are the reputation management who say to them, no, this is how you manage this. So this is the path to go. Even if you need to twist the truth for now, we will manage it later on and so on. So they are usually, you know, have been given some advice by some people who say this is the best way to do this, and you know, or they have done it themselves on their own accord, and then someone comes to the rescue and says, this is not how you, so now let's spin it this way, because when you do this, this is, you know, what you could potentially salvage from it.
You should never try, you should never...
I was going to say, don't lie to me fast. Have you advised people to lie?
No, you should never try to get a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, to explain reputation management. Reputation management is not spin.
I mean, isn't it?
No. The basic rule of reputation management is tell the truth and tell it as early as possible. All right? People who are trained to manage their reputation know that we live in an era of social media. The big brother is all over the place. Whatever you do in the dark always ends up coming out there. Somebody who's trained would not lie when they're cornered, as we described. They would probably say, listen, I don't even answer now, so that they pull back to think about how they're going to respond to this. They have to consider the ramifications of whatever story they're going to tell. Those are spin doctors. On the other hand, tell you to twist the truth so that it sounds good, it sounds palatable. There's a difference between a spin doctor and a reputation management person. It's not the same thing. It's not a fine line. Bell Pottinger was a spin doctoring agency. Reputation means reputation. If you go to the basic dictionary definition of reputation, it means how do you make sure that you don't end up putting yourself in mud that you'll never get out of. Okay, and as I say, the basic rule of reputation management is tell the truth as early as possible. Because if you hide the truth, or if you lie at first, you're going to end up finding yourself on the back foot, having to explain why you lied in the first place.
And what about telling a lie that's so big? If we look at what happened in Iraq, those weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist. If you tell a lie that's so big, does it just sort of bamboozle people into believing you? Because you can't possibly believe that a politician can be that...
Yeah, I suppose there's props.
Big a liar.
You know, there are psychological props that go with it. Because, and part of those props are the stature of the person and the resources they have at their disposal. And so when... And resources, including the media as a platform that will, you know, they will use and that they very often have control over, to say this is what we're going to say, and they are given the platform to do so, and without a sense of feeling that they are accountable for those you know, facts, that the doctored facts that they put out, and they know that because of the stature and magnitude and control that they have, chances are there is less questioning than an ordinary person if you would say the same thing and say whatever. It's like, who is she? You know, why must we believe her? Whereas somebody who has that scale of influence can very easily leverage and use that to their advantage, or, you know, a detriment of others.
I mean, what would you have advised Gigaba? I mean, he came out very quickly and apologized before we even really knew what was being discussed or showed. Is that the right way forward? Should you quickly jump in there and apologize if you realize that you've lied?
Well, the thing is, it was not even clear what he was apologizing for. Was he apologizing for having shot the video, or was he apologizing for the video finding itself into the public space? I would have said to him, well, you have to tell it. Why did you do it? Yeah. Really, tell the truth, because chances are that there are three people involved here: his wife, an apparent mistress, and himself. And the two wives are not going. The two ladies were not going to tell the same story. You know? So he would. How I him, I would have said, I did this. You know, that's the most stupid thing I've ever done. I shouldn't have done it. Sorry. Of course, there would be consequences. But it's better to tell the truth, that now everything you see on social media spins around the lie. And you can't take people for granted. South Africans are not fools. I mean, and when politicians lie, like you said earlier, the more you tell a lie, the more you repeat it, the more it seems people start seeing the holes in the lie. And then this is what's happening with Malusi Gigaba. There isn't anything in the story that he told us that is convincing.
But then you sort of lose touch with the story, where it originates and actually what it was, until it's become this big mess and you can't even remember what the facts were.
Yeah, I mean, also because, you know, he told us one part of his truth. He didn't tell us everything else. But what we've seen on social media are other things that are related to the same story that he chose not to disclose. So it's always better to just say, you know what, I made a mistake, or I did something that I thought would never be out there. It's out there. This is how I'm going to deal with it.
And you've got Donald Trump, who would never apologize, never admit. He lies, and then he lies about his lies. Why does he do that? I mean, is he cognizant of it? Does he care?
I think both. He is cognizant and he doesn't care. He is, I think Donald Trump lives in a particular bubble of his own making, and he believes in his own delusions, and in his mind, it's everybody else's problem if you don't, come into his bubble and live in his world. And I don't think I think his personality is such that, and it's been reinforced by the position that he holds globally, and also his financial muscle, which has convinced him in his mind that anybody else doesn't think, and he's the only one with brains because he's been able to make the kind of money that he has, and therefore everybody must dance to his tune. He's really, a narcissist who really doesn't care about anybody else's opinion of him.
But then you take people along with you, don't you? I mean, he's got a support base that does believe him. So I guess if you believe your, your own lies, then others can too.
Sure. I mean, there's shared delusions as well.
Like
so
that, yeah.
It's never a solo performance. And when you're a person with that kind of stature, and there are things that people validly can admire you for. So there is a truth to the fact that he has this much money, and so therefore when people aspire to those things as indicators of success, it's very easy for them to kind of worship whichever direction you fall.
I mean, do you have to lie to be a successful politician, to be a successful businessman? Is it a sleight of hand?
It seems inevitable. But, people must also know that it always catches up with you. I think politicians are very smart, especially those who always avoid media interviews. They just come in there, say whatever they want to say, and move out. But it always catches up with them. They know that at some point it'll catch up with them.
I quite like this quote: if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. That's probably a good way to start. Solly Moeng and Khosi Jiyane, thank you very much. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Has the legalization to cultivate and use marijuana for private use opened up the gate for children to experiment with more drugs? That's up next.